Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the simplest way to build up a deadlift. So if you were to ask me, hey, what's the best way, the quickest way to get to a 500-pound deadlift? Now, a lot of times I've told people they need to just build up the musculature, and I think I've said before, a lot of people can pretty much get there just by doing good mornings and pen lay rows, right? That would technically build most of the musculature that you need, to get to at least a 500-pound deadlift. Now, in my case, I'm pulling 615 there. So let's get a little more comprehensive because let's assume someone has already started building a base. Let's say you've already built a little bit of a base. You can pull well over 300 pounds, so you're not a complete rank novice. You don't have a true strength base yet, but you've at least built something. What would that person be able to do to get there quickly? Which lifts would we incorporate? Well, I'd say right up front, speed sumo pulls. Speed sumo pulls would be near the top of the list. Okay? They would be near the top of the list. People would say, why? The sumo deadlift will build the conventional deadlift. Sumo deadlift will build the conventional deadlift, and the sumo deadlift will also build the sumo deadlift. The difference here is that it's easier to recover from. You can handle higher volumes of it. With speed work, we can handle higher volumes of quality reps and still recover from it. And I want that to be stressed when I talk about speed work a lot. You have to understand the speed work has a very pronounced hypertrophic effect. And doing speed sumo pulls is one of the few ways that you can really get meaningful hypertrophy as a non-ranked novice by doing deadlifts. But speed pulls are going to be a very, very high priority for building your base in order to deadlift. And a lot of my lifters, when they're early on before I put them on conjugate, get upset at me for making them do sub-maximal sumo deadlifts. Right? They don't understand. They don't get it. And it's hard to get them to understand that sometimes. They're like, I can do more weight, and I'm having them do 10 singles, and it's like, no, I want you working at like 80% at the most. But eventually they come around, and when they get to past the 400 deadlift and it keeps going up, then they understand. But speed pulls with sumos. Up next, I would say speed box squats. Why? Same reason. The exact same reason we do the sumo speed pulls. We get a good stimulus to fatigue ratio. We can learn compensatory acceleration. The box squat will teach you how to sumo deadlift. And the speed box allows us to do so in a way in which we get the most effective reps that stimulate upper threshold fibers with the best recovery. Okay, this combination together, speed boxes and speed pulls, will build the musculature, the base musculature, at least at the hips and the movement patterns and everything that you need to deadlift. And of course, if you have access to a safety squat bar, that will carry over to your deadlifting even better because of the T-spine involvement. Okay, absolutely tremendous benefits to combine these two together. But this has to do with the more dynamic component, movement pattern components, everything else. What about more of building the base musculature? Because I've also told guys we don't have to do either one of these to really build your deadlift up. What have I told people frequently in the past? Well, that we can do good mornings and pendlay rows. Good mornings and pendlay rows will build it up, particularly if you do a little bit of extra hamstring work with it, which is why you saw me doing the glute ham raises up there earlier. Because if we're going to do good mornings, we could do them with a straight bar, and that will help a lot, but it will give you a little more hamstring, a little less upper back if you do them with a straight bar, which again, in that case, you might not need as much direct hamstring work. Now, in my case, you see me doing them with the safety squat bar, which I would prefer, and for people to just do a little extra hamstring work. But again, normal good mornings will work fine. As long as you go all the way down, keep the knees relatively straight. If you can get the 90 degrees, again, be fantastic. In fact, I would say people would be stronger than they realize. If you can do 5 sets of 10 to 90 degrees without massively bent knees with the straight bar, and you can do 5 sets of 10 on the pendlay row strictly with no body movement, you're well on your way. If you can do those both with a full plate per side, 135 pounds for 5 by 10, you're well on your way towards a 500 deadlift. Okay, and I have guys who are pretty close to that, who that is what their lifts are. Again, I've got a couple of clients who that's what they work with for those lifts, and they're up in the mid 400s and climbing towards 500 now. It would behoove you to master these two exercises. So why the good morning? This teaches you how to hip hinge, right? This movement teaches you a lot of what you need about the conventional deadlift, and it builds the musculature involved of a deep hip hinge. Again, it does it in a way with a phenomenal stimulus to fatigue ratio. I pointed that out many, many times. That's one of the differences this has over the Romanian deadlift. People are like, well, it's the same movement, the same muscles are worked. Yeah, the same muscles are worked on the base one. Now, if you use different bars and different variations, we have more variation with the good morning. But a standard low bar good morning works the same muscles other than grip as the Romanian deadlift. However, it does so with less axial loading and less total fatigue. You can do more total volume, therefore you can get more effective quality reps. It's also better for building range of motion. I would say the good morning is probably one of the number one exercises, if not the most important exercise that will build a conventional deadlift up. And obviously anything that builds a conventional will build a sumo to some extent. All right? And then after that, Pendlay rows. Pendlay rows, and I mean strict Pendlay rows, learning to pull from the floor. And a lot of people will say, well, what about Kaler Woolam's cheat row? It's like, that's fine for Kaler Woolam. I'm talking about you guys who do not have an 800 deadlift working towards a 900 deadlift. If you don't deadlift 500 pounds yet, I would strongly recommend that you do very, very strict Pendlay rows. No torso movement. I have tutorials on both of these exercises, by the way. Detailed tutorials. Detailed tutorials on both of these. Actually, I have detailed tutorial on the box squat, the sumo deadlift, the good morning, and the Pendlay row. Okay. So the main four exercises I've listed, even though we discussed the speed versions, we have details of. So why Pendlay row? Helps build your grip strength. Helps you learn to keep your posterior chain pulled in tight and builds isometric strength in it. It builds lats, again, builds grip. And again, the strength involved by being at that downward angle, as you pull it up, we get ourselves stronger as far as the ability to have scapular retraction. You need to be able to maintain scapular retraction with your lats to get the strong pull off the floor out of the bottom of a conventional deadlift. It matters. Okay? Matters a lot. Will help build up the lats for that. In addition to all of that, hamstring work. Anything that we can do to develop our hamstrings. So especially if we do good mornings with a safety bar, if we have access, it would very much behoove you to build your hamstrings. Now, in a perfect world, you guys saw me doing the glute ham raise above, you would have access to that. I've found many, many gyms that have a glute ham raise. They're actually more common than people realize, just they don't realize it's sitting over there in the corner because they don't use it. And they see people doing their abs on it. The glute ham raise is the best hamstring supplemental lift you could add in, mainly because it works all functions of the hamstring, not just the hip hinge. And while we could argue that that may not matter tremendously for the strength component, the injury prevention component is phenomenal. I mean, good mornings will always be your main weapon of choice there. It'd be the best tool you could use. But we want full hamstring development. And again, if on a conventional you start slowing down just before the knee or right at the knee, it's usually a sign of hamstring weakness. But also injury prevention, because we completely work the hamstring. It gives better knee joint stability. Hamstrings are less likely to pull or tear on a deadlift, right? So if you don't have access to that, the next best thing is going to be hamstring curls. And I would say, again, train those hamstrings into the ground. Build them up as big as you possibly can. It will never hurt your deadlift to have bigger, stronger hamstrings. And then I would say what most people don't have access to, and it's part of my collection of tools in the toolbox, and that's going to be a reverse hyperextension. And I know this isn't going to be something that most people have access to, and it isn't necessary for this goal, but it is absurdly helpful. It's absurdly helpful because of the recovery component of it, the restoration component. It helps with, again, putting the back in traction, helping you recover faster so you can do more overall training and adapt quicker, while again just helping build a bulletproof lower back. But in my experience, the reverse hyper is probably the best glute exercise I've ever found. Phenomenal low back exercise, and actually a pretty dang good hamstring movement. In addition to the fact that it teaches you how to hip hinge more effectively. And again, it is, if you get strong on it and you use it correctly, can be a phenomenal kind of like icing on the cake movement to help build your deadlift. And again, I threw it in last because it's something that most people are not going to have access to. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.